So when your parents allowed you to do this, to go audition for Harry Potter, how did the opportunity come up?
They didn't. I think actually Maggie Smith had recommended me from David Copperfield, the BBC show I did with her. I think she put my name into Chris Columbus's mind. And then my dad was a literary agent by that time who had made a film, who one of his directors had made a film with Norma Heyman, who is David Heyman's mother, our producer on Potter. So David went, I think, through Norma to my dad saying, would he consider letting me audition? I was completely unaware of all of this. They just kept me, I think rightly, in the dark at that point.
So at one point there was a discussion between your mom and dad, like, do we let him go for this opportunity?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think a few discussions probably. And then we went to the theatre one night, and me and my mum and dad were sitting in one row, and the row in front of us was sitting David Heyman, the producer, with a man next to him who it later transpired was Steve Clovis, who was adapting the books for the screen. And I didn't know why, but I did notice this man like turning around and looking at me like several times during the show, and I was like,
pedophile.
What's that about? Yeah, I mean, I was a bit like, what? This is odd. And then my mum and dad, like, at the interval came, and my mum and dad rushed me up and outside into the street and just like stood there like talking, and they were like, "That's David. Should we go and say hello? Should we, like, what do we do?" You know, and not quite knowing what the thing to do was. And then basically, like, I think my parents. I don't believe in fate, but fortunately for me, my parents do, because they sort of viewed that as like a sign of like, okay, maybe we've now like just like run into the producer and the guy who's writing it randomly on the street. Maybe this is trying to tell us something. Should we just let him audition? And so they did. And I actually came into the process really late. I think Rupert and Emma both had like. Were into like the double digits in terms of how many auditions they'd gone to in total. I think I
double digits.
Yeah, I think I did like 4 or 5. It was relatively quick. And then and I think I had my first audition in maybe June or July of that year, and then we were filming by September.
And were you a fan of the book? Your parents read them to you?
Oh, I think my dad had read the first 2 to me, and I wasn't particularly, I wasn't particularly a reader at all. Like, so I found reading really tricky, and wasn't into it. And then after the first press conference that we did, where like me, Rupert, and Emma walked out in front of sort of the London media and did this press conference where somebody asked me like some like Potter trivia question, and I like didn't know the answer, and both Rupert and Emma, I remember very vividly, like wrote it down on paper and tried to slide it over to me, which like in front of lots of cameras, like there was no way that was not being seen by anyone. And I didn't know, so I guess after that I was like, I really should read these. And then I read the
Maybe
first,
you should read the source material.
Yeah, and so I started from the beginning and loved it. And they did for me what they did for a lot of kids. Like, they got me into reading. Like I'm now a pretty avid reader, and I can definitely trace that back to both the Potter books and my parents' just persistence.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like what you just saw, then why not subscribe? Click right here for lots more off-camera. And if you want to see the hour-long version of these conversations, I'm going to give you the secret link. Here it is, offcamera.com. Check it out.